Chapter 35. A month later. Pacing in their living room back in Houston, Coraline seethed with the immensity of the task she must complete. It didn't help that her plan for a return trip to the jungle was retroactively squashed by Sasha, along with any chance of bombarding her from an overseas, unrestricted safe haven. When she first tried to boot up the cubes, glasses, tablets, and laptop she had taken, Coraline discovered it was all tabula rasa. There was no GPS history, molecular data, or anything beyond the reset, preloaded software. Feeling gut-punched, she dropped instantly into a deep depression. Back in the jungle, Coraline had Sasha within her grasp. She could have called the military and had her detained. Worst case, she could have just shot her in the leg and sorted it all out later. But not knowing who was really more intelligent, her or Sasha, was the biggest burr in her saddle. And now that bitch-ass faker was out in the world. Yet hidden forever? No. Coraline wasn't going to have any of it. But even after tapping every programmer, hacker, and connection she had, Sasha remained invisible to Coraline's usual X-ray internet vision. Did she ever really exist? Or was Coraline slowly losing her mind? Would Harold stay if she did? She couldn't handle so many unanswered questions. One day, Coraline just snapped, flying into a fit of reckless rage. With a deep, primal scream, she had thrown one of the last intact scry cubes into their fireplace. Miniature brimstone projectiles shot everywhere, with glass shards riding shotgun. Ever the anchor, Harold leapt at the burning Persian rug, stomping on it with his favorite sandals. Damn it, Coraline! And then, using one of his many other superpowers, he literally never spoke of it again. Holy shit, Coraline loved him beyond words. That incident was a week ago, and she was still just as frustrated and deep in denial about her future, their future. At least she knew it, though. But without whatever the black seeds did, the half-life of the chews threw her endocrine system and nervous system in and out of disarray at breakneck speeds. The cycle of creation and destruction was not sustainable. The integration wasn't properly aged enough to lend perspective. Plus, Sasha had spun a web of contacts, smugglers, and bribed government employees worldwide, acting as personal assistants. Coraline didn't have the luxury of time to pull all that together. She likely had less than a year to live, as bright as she was burning. And there was no way she was going to go to jail for herbs either. But the thought of being stuck in linear, unmodified native time without a way to alter its perception, after experiencing the 9? Even if she stopped the drugs, Coraline would end up dead anyway, by hook or crook. Still, every second under the crushing weight of the reality-churning stages felt like thousands of burning ant bites whenever she dosed. Each one screaming, "Hurry up, stupid!" I'm an engineer, for fuck's sake. How can I not be able to solve this and find a workaround? Something that isn't as mercurial or seasonal as Mother Nature, Coraline thought, fuming. You know what? Screw her plant spirit bullshit. And all those herbs. The whole woo-woo bucket of hippie turds. I need, Coraline said to the universe, not really expecting an answer. Well, those effects could be computationally or mechanically induced, right? Harold offered between bites of grilled cheese and bacon sandwich. Like the tech we talked about on our walk to the river, remember? That sort of hardware, but hey, you're the genius programmer. I'm just the arm candy, he said, hoping to get a laugh out of her. Coraline stopped her frenetic pacing so suddenly she almost fell face first into their glass coffee table. A cornucopia of images spilled out of her memory banks, mostly sensual in nature, but the river. She remembered that shimmering surface, hypnotizing her as they made love, and that sparked another subconscious association. Fluid computing, she said as if it was a regular topic of discussion, like grilled cheese and bacon sandwiches, say. I got your fluid computing right here, Harold started, back on sexual innuendo autopilot. She gave him a "you're beautiful, but hush" hand signal, and he shrugged, turning his attention to the pickle spear on his plate. He did so love pickles. Resuming her attempts to destroy what remained of their new rug, she reached deep into her memory palace, slamming boxes aside and throwing things over her mental shoulders. It had to be in there, but where the hell had she... Ah! In a manic flash, she recalled an article about those simplistic, self-organizing machines currently used to reclaim pharmaceuticals from cities' brown water supplies. Disgusting, yet brilliant, she thought, wringing her hands, a habit that annoyed and worried Harold to no end. But it did offer a tell of just how off-kilter she was at any given moment, which right now was mucho. Dump 'em in a swampy glass of swill, and once bonded to their target molecules, they Voltron themselves together. Then, it's just a simple matter of spontaneous second harmonic generation, she blurted out, unable to censor her wild mind. Spontaneous what now? Harold answered. Is that code for Nookie? 'Cause I just ate, so I may need a nap first, but maybe after? Harold retorted with a mostly serious eyebrow waggle. She wanted to laugh, but couldn't. In fact, she loved to laugh, but Harold hadn't seen her do that non-maniacally since when? The night in the tent, when they had run the obstacle course of herbs and made love for hours, with not a care in the world. He swallowed more of his lunch, a hard lump of food and regret stuck in his throat. Had he known? So, they clumped together and sank to the bottom of the container, ready to be filtered out or liberated by various solvents and reused. Could she modify them, adapt them to the unique environment of a human circulatory system? In the intricate structure of the body, could they still effectively remove toxins? What about actively directing chemicals to uptake receptors, initiate cell death in tumors, make Sasha's big lie an actual reality? But more importantly, could she use them to transmit and process information? Even just a simple binary could turn the blood and body of a Jane Schmo into an actual supercomputer. So powerful. Too powerful? Is that a thing? She mused with a trickster smile. But there were way too many undetermined factors inside the highways and byways of all that meaty mass. Too many cul-de-sacs to trap errant, chemical-toting Proteus that might get lost along the way. Always with a damn complexity, Coraline bemoaned. Then, out of nowhere, Sasha's words came to her. The words that Coraline had never actually heard. This multiverse is such a pain in my ass. She ignored this blip of extrasensory perception, much like she ignored Harold's antics. Interesting, yet highly distracting. But it did remind Coraline that she would need another component beyond the nanites. Something that would replicate the intangible, non-material effects of the Nine, the raw power, and intuitive guidance. Unfortunately, the average conscious mind was far too shielded by the ego for a direct assault. And the subconscious, without the herbs and drugs, was too elusive for interfacing. Whatever the solution, it had to be something Coraline could prototype ASAP before. She dodged the scary thought and got back on task. Nanites in the blood, yes, but also a control unit, a way to direct the machines and receive the data from the fluid computation. Coraline said to no one, stopping her shuffling to collate her mental files. Looking over at their potted plant, she was just about to ask it for a second opinion when Harold chimed in. And an AI in a pear tree, he belted out, his voice cracking once he unwisely left the baritone range. "Stay in your lane, bud." Coraline started pacing again, wondering where to buy rugs in bulk, and watching him watch something on his laptop. Wait. AI, yes. Her AI engine. "Thanks and apologies, sweet stuff. Sing your heart out, my dear Harold," Coraline thought, fighting the urge to hug him and cry, perhaps not in that order. "Yes, I need a circuit between the internet, a control unit, and the nanites. Like Sasha's loop with the glasses, the computers, the cloud, but so much more. And an AI to provide guidance for all those little suckerfish. Suppose I can get the nanites beyond the blood-brain barrier. In that case, I can produce visuals, phantom effects, bend perception, right? They could be like a mass spec for the soul, transmitting and receiving data, thoughts, and later implants in the scalp perhaps, if this works, if I'm still..." Suddenly, Harold bombarded her mental process with deep, gut-busting laughter. "Oh, Cora, you gotta see this. It's a dog, a cat, and a baby duck, and the dog adopted them. Like, she's like their dog mom or mama dog. I don't know the correct, anyway, she..." "No, not the internet. Sweet dancing baby Jesus memes, no." Coraline shout thought inside her already noisy skull. What it would take would be an intranet, more like, she thought, steepling her fingers to focus and self-soothe. "Uh-oh," Harold thought stoically as he side-eyed her with concern. But then immediately turned his laser focus to the more critical question of, "Hey, did I already drink the last root beer? The game is afoot, Watson." Yes, an intranet, filtered by me but organized and structured organically by the AI engine. "Let's sell it as curated," she mumbled. Her eyes brightened with a spark of hope, but she refused to hold on to it for fear of smothering it. "So, make the control unit, headgear, glasses, or other wearable peripherals powerful enough to transmit to the carotid artery, all using Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, whatever's bleeding edge at the time, or whatever I need to invent." All this made her sweat as she calculated precisely how many of each candy packet she had left. She couldn't sleep on this, pull a flowers for Algernon, and wake up trapped in a broken brain, her genius a forgotten dream. No, she had to meld all this tech together and tap every technological angle necessary before running out of the 9. She had to keep her power position, her boosted intellect, no matter the cost. On top of that was the heaviest secret she had kept from Harold. The energy chews were almost gone, indulged in a tad too much. So she had turned to pharmaceuticals and meds for ADHD. And when procuring those legally became problematic, she switched to dicey research chemicals from questionable sources. It was a dangerous game of unregulated synthetic drug hopscotch, and one Coraline had seen kill fellow students. Professors as well, as they pushed for innovation that their native biology just couldn't produce. The cooked-up alternatives also didn't have the chew's full-spectrum effect, let's just say that. Focused? Yes. Energized? Of course. But Coraline knew they were assaulting her entire mind, body, and spirit. She knew about all the possible side effects, some lethal if you have vulnerable genes. And unfortunately, she had some of those genes. Judging from the number of new gray hairs appearing since switching to the research chems, she was also aging rapidly. And other symptoms cropped up as she tried to replace or supplement the herb's magical properties with the hopefully clean, pure synthetic analogs and stand-ins. From the beginning of those paltry swaps, Coraline had developed the nervous habits of cheek chewing, OCD patterns, and other physical tics. Normal light levels were shocking, sounds abrading, and conversations so slow they made her skin crawl as if she was standing still in a burning building. She also wasn't sleeping enough, most nights getting up for a second round of web searches when it seemed she had just laid down. The brass tacks of it all were that Coraline desperately needed to jump off Sasha's organic, earth-based ladder of vague outcomes and fluctuating effects. But not into a chasm filled with delusion, alienation, and terminal consequences. No, she would land on a modern, sleek, sexy ladder born of technological wonders. One of her own making, forged from silica, nanites, and qubits. But the necessary transition between those two extremes was made all the more difficult by the addictive nature of power. She felt that raw power when fully dosed with a 9. Still, that feeling was diminishing and flattening out with each synthetic replacement. Coraline had to admit that Sasha's predictions had come to pass. She didn't fully understand how to leverage the herbs. And without whatever earth-shaking effect the black seed must add to the herbs, their full potential and magic were forever locked up in their complex profiles. Coraline would be forced to wander a mundane wasteland, stranded between godhood and the actual hood when the Chews were gone, or whatever dumpster she would be living behind soon. Plus, when she was going full steam, the emotional highs and lows, lateral sensations, anomalies, and fleeting brain states were torturous, and the strange effects, or side effects, depending upon your view, were both enthralling and confounding. When Harold finally convinced her to take a weekend off and dry out, she searched for clues in her diary and lab notes. Everything she had written felt foreign to her sober mind. The entries were filled with supposed precognition and retrocausality, and reading it had a different flavor than experiencing it out there in the jungle. It felt counterfeit, and so did she. And now, when she dosed, the worst part was a haunting, creeping feeling that something was close by, lurking in the very fabric of reality itself. It lived somewhere between her conscious and subconscious minds, like death but in rat form. And every moment she was awake, it clawed and gnawed frantically on the drywall between both head spaces. In a nutshell, no pun intended, Coraline was mentally pulling away from the rest of humanity at breakneck speeds. So quickly that Coraline felt as if she were either evolving into an entirely new species or going completely fucking crazy. And her greatest fear was that if either came to pass, it would create an unbridgeable divide between her and Harold. She might lose him to her quest, and the sudden thought choked her up. Before he could see her terror, she turned prematurely on her route, hiding her close tears. No, Coraline would find the solution or implode in the process. "I'm going in," she said, blessedly ending her pacing jag with a kiss on his forehead. "Okay," he replied, pretending to be glued to the screen. "But, want to get it on after?" she asked coyly. "Oh, sure. Now he turns and looks in my eyes. Men. You know, you always ask the most rhetorical shit for someone so—" Harold started, but fell silent as she took his face in both hands and kissed him on the mouth. Pulling away reluctantly, she smiled, and then sauntered off down the hall. "Happy hunting," he called after her, one of his stock well-wishes. But as she walked away, he recognized the shifts in her posture, her gait falling from pack leader to wounded stray, the twitches in her fingers she tried to hide from him, and the frenetic energy she exuded, preparing to jump from impulse power to warp speed. Coraline turned the corner to the spare room, went inside, and immediately slammed a bottle of electrolyte water. Gasping for breath, she stared at the closet. Chewing the ragged flesh of her cheeks, Coraline let out a vast, weary breath. Marching across the room, she went inside and closed the door, the white light of the laptop monitor engulfing her in its sterile hue. And there she would stand, in a 6x6 soundproof box, tearing through the internet with the help of her AI engine sidekick, nicknamed Core, no relation. For countless hours she would type, muttering to herself, and occasionally punching the padded karate target on the wall, sometimes until her knuckles bled. Once brimming with designer clothes, the dismal, hopeless space had become a self-imposed torture chamber. Almost every night, before Harold went off to bed alone, he would find her curled up on the floor, exhausted. As data scrolled on the screen, with a heavy heart, he would simply put a pillow under her head, kiss her cheek, and close the door.